So far, it's been pretty interesting on how you make your character.
Yeah. Chapter 1, The Arrival. Ooh, artwork.
So you have a minimum of 3 rage, minimum of 3 willpower, minimum of 3 health. Your apparently name is Maya. Is that how you pronounce that?
Yeah, Maya Borodich. June 20th in the morning. Maya? Maya. Maya, wake up. I jerk upright, irritated. My neck was stiff, and the movement sent a sudden, sharp wave of discomfort through my body. I wasn't in the forest anymore. I wasn't in a bus. Should be on a bus. Uh, the sun streaming through the windows was making it hard to see. The girl next to me was touching my shoulder, disturbed. I push her away, or I ask what happened. I push her away. Without a second thought, I push her away, adrenaline surging through me. When your rage is high, you may say and do things that you later regret. Regret. Regret.
Regret.
What's wrong with you? She recoiled, looking at hurt and scared. It was a while before she said anything. You were singing, I guess, in your sleep? I blinked. The memory of the dream was still there, and the overwhelming smell of the old forest. I look outside, or say I was glad I wasn't alone.
Want to go back to the forest?
Yeah. I look outside. Must have bitten my lip. Wow. Words. I thought as I ran my tongue over my teeth. The forest outside the window was watching me. The girl next to me shook her head. Thank God, we're almost there. Her name was Anya. I know an Anya. We've met a couple weeks earlier on the orientation day. She was from Norway. Cool. A tall, broad-shouldered, calm person who wore her long hair in braids. Somehow I've managed to talk her into this crazy field trip across the land of my ancestors. We were there to study medicine, or she was having second thoughts. Why does it say Anya is cautious?
Because when you pushed her away, you made Anya cautious.
Should I pick that one?
Come on, you don't want to study medicine?
Rage monster that studies medicine. Sure.
Sounds right about for you.
We'd both come to Poland for the same reason, to study medicine. It was less expensive here, and we'd both receive government scholarships. Nice. So did he want to become a doctor, or... she asked when we first met. It wasn't my decision, I was still searching, or the human body is fascinating.
Go ahead.
The human body is fascinating.
Truthfully, Temps, there's no wrong answers here. Just pick whatever you want to have fun
people.
with.
I said there is when I kill people. The game tracks your decisions on how Maya approaches problems. They will accumulate and gradually reveal what kind of person she is deep in her heart. The story changes to reflect Maya's personality. Interesting. The way the human body works is fascinating, with all its organs, interconnections, and complicated chemical reactions. I couldn't see myself as a doctor, though, treating people day in, day out, rushing to help them. I wanted to be a lab researcher, or a coroner. Anyway, I found a scholarship. I guess I continue on. No options. That's why Anya and I were on the bus to...
Oh, come on. Come on.
Bieloza. Sure.
See, I would have gone with bile. Because it's dial.
Bieloza.
Bile. Low. Yeah, Bieloza.
Bieloza.
Or Bieloza.
Anyway. A place. In Poland. Poland. Ah, if only only he was here. He'd be able to tell me how it's pronounced. A small village in northeast Poland near the border.
Okay, hold on. Tammy has a friend that she met through art and art-esque stuff that is from Poland. That is what she was actually trying to refer to, but she just basically went, "Oh, I wish she was here," as in like a person that she's never actually met in person, and that she barely talks to via online, was just magically here while we were recording this, so that he can explain to her how to say that one word. Now that that was clarified, you can continue. A small village
In northeast Poland near the border with Belarus. I knew that one. It was famous for its national park, the very last European bison. And according to a quick web search, occasional tensions between far-right troublemakers and the local Belarusian community. She was having second thoughts. Thanks for giving me that option. Anya reached into her backpack and took out an apple. She turned away from me and bit into the fruit. I reached into my bag and fished out a bunch of kabanasi, dried meaty sausages that were so much better than the original Polish ones back in the US. Anya's still looked like she regretted meeting me. People often did, actually. Girl, you're a lot to handle, she said after a lengthy silence. I'm not sure if I have the bandwidth for so much drama in my life. This trip was my idea. Our summer language course was starting in a few weeks, and I managed to talk Anya into skipping the tours of concentration camps and old churches and visiting Białowieża National Park with me instead. Remind me, why are we here again? She asked with her arms crossed. Don't give me that attitude. Good question. Why were we there? Most honest answer wouldn't been because I've been dreaming about the forest in Białowieża since I can remember, but people don't understand when I said things like that. I looked her in the eyes.
So I'm gonna just say something I've been realizing. I think when it says that high rage stuff, that is an alternate choices that
Because
the game
I
has,
have.
because you have high rage. If you actually were to go with different choices down earlier, I think those choices would have changed how this progresses.
Possibly.
So when I actually play the game, I'm going to go towards my thought process. It'll be interesting. Go ahead.
I kept it simple so I wouldn't freak her out. I told her as much as I could, or I spend a willpower and tell her everything. Do I like Anya this much? Told her as much as I could.
It's also really interesting that you can spend a willpower, but theoretically, if you had spent the willpower earlier, would that choice be locked out?
Yeah. Questions unanswered.
Or is it like you can never go, like if you don't have it, you can still spend it? It's interesting. We'll have to figure out as we progress.
I will go with I told her as much as I could.
Okay.
Because I really don't want to lose willpower.
Yeah, no, I was going to go with 1 to 2.
I wanted to see the forest. I heard it was a must. That wasn't technically a lie. When I was little, my grandfather told me stories about an ancient forest full of wonders and the wolves that lived in it. It was all I got from the part of the family before my mom took me, ran away, and cut off all contact with my dad.
So Daddy was definitely keen or aware.
But I remembered the stories well, and I remembered the name of the forest. Great! Puszkaza. Białowieża. This will always be our home, my grandfather used to say. I waited for her to respond, since that's my only option. Anya fell silent for a moment. She is cautious. But she still looked like she regretted coming with me. I think we should split up for a while, she she said finally. I already have a list of places I wanted to see. I'd just slow you down. What a nice way to say fuck off. And that was precisely why I needed to do something, anything, about my future, that damned forest, and my weird-ass family. I had a clear goal set in mind as my only option. I wasn't there by mistake. I had planned this trip for months and had a clear goal in mind. I had to face the forest, I had to learn the truth about my roots, or I had to figure out my destiny.
So, to make it easier for you, when that forest comes back up, you can call it the Forest of the White Tower. Because that is what it translates to.
I think I'm gonna go with I had to learn the truth about my roots. Because destiny is just too ominous.
So, the first word there, that, or the has whatever, is forest.
Uzza?
Yeah, that's forest. And the other one is White Tower. Or of the White Tower. So,
Of the White Tower.
So those two together is Forest of the White Tower.
I see.
So there you go.
Learn about my roots. My grandfather's stories, the secrets, my mother running away. There was a mystery in my past. It was time I uncovered the truth about who I was. But now I wasn't sure if it'd been a good idea. Always a good idea. Go with your gut. Go with your rage. Welcome home. Anya took her luggage and disappeared as soon as we got off, leaving me at the deserted bus stop. Anya left. The White Tower looked like an overexposed photo of a village with the contrast turned up all the way up. With the sun wasn't just shining, it was shouting at the earth and everything. The trees, the grass, the wooden houses, the fences seemed weathered. Everything except the shadows. They were sharp, as though they were freshly printed in the darkest of inks. And they moved. That's my only option. For a second, I could have sworn they moved, but then I realized it was just a black cat walking down the sidewalk. When it saw me, it stopped in its tracks. I decided to ignore it. I watched it with suspicion, or I tried to pet it. Why would you pet a random cat?
Some people really like cats, Tams.
Good for them. I am not one of those people. I watch it with suspicion.
Man, when I play this, it's going to be completely different.
It's going to be all wonky. Were rabid cats a thing? I wasn't sure, and I definitely wasn't interested in finding out the hard way. I looked up. A friend was supposed to pick us up from the bus stop, but he wasn't there, and the cat was still staring at me. For a moment, I was tempted to just get out of the sun and worry about my missing friend later. With high rage, I can storm off, but the meeting was just too important. Yeah, I'd wait for my friend. As much as I would love to just use the high rage stuff all the time. Yeah. His name is Bartek. Interesting name. I'd met him online while researching the White Tower. The man knew everything there was to know about local history. That was a weird way of phrasing that. I asked him to check if anyone in town remembered my grandparents. I hoped he'd found something. So I waited. It's my only option. So I waited, and that creepy cat waited with me. Bartek was 15 minutes late, flustered, and apologetic. It was his dad's company, he explained while catching his breath. He'd had to help him out with some paperwork. I didn't really care, using high rage, or I said nothing. I'm not a bitch. Highly aggressive, yes, but I took my time looking at him. It was the first time we'd met in real life. He was tall, broad-shouldered, and freckles all over his face. Come on, I'll take you to your place. His accent was broad and very Eastern European. I flooded him with questions. Anya would have liked him, or I caught him looking at me. Okay. I don't know what to pick. I don't really want to flood him with questions. Because that's just weird. Anya would have liked him.
Yep.
The least harmless one, it feels. Anya would have taken immediate liking to him. He was totally her type. We were besties. We know each other's types. But she wasn't there. Her loss. We walked along the only street in the village, slowly making our way towards the outskirts. The trees were growing denser, their scent becoming richer and more pronounced. Only option? I took a deep breath. Compared to shallow breaths, I guess. So, did you manage to trace the name I gave you? I asked. Bartek looked back. No, absolutely nothing. Sorry.
Okay. Just for the record, when you're scratching your nose, probably don't keep talking. Because all I heard was, no, absolutely nothing.
I wasn't trying to give him a voice. He was avoiding my eyes. A trickle of sweat ran down his temple. High rage says he was lying straight to my face. What the fuck, man? I didn't use rage. I threw my arms in the air. You wrote to me a few days ago saying you had something. But he just clammed up. You know what? I think you should drop it. I stopped. High rage says I can use that was the final straw.
Yeah, but I think the reason that you had high rage there, Tams, is because the fact that you have high rage, so you immediately have those outbursts. Remember, you're you're a werewolf with high rage. You're unlike your other character who has learned to meditate and self-control. I don't see much self-control on your character sheet. Actually, press Y. I don't see any self-control at all.
I don't know if you know this, but the werewolf sheets we're used to do not have self-control.
Exactly.
Anyway. And I unleashed all my charm. Or I felt hurt. I really don't want to get into it with this guy.
Really?
Not on the street.
He was doing research. Told you that he found stuff. He's afraid because I think he found out that there's supernatural involved and he's terrified, but...
So you're saying I should just totally... That's
turn
the last
fluffy on
straw
him?
and...
Turn fluffy on him, eat his face? You do you, Pants. You just don't have to be a nice person. I've been trying to let you know this. You can be as aggressive as you freaking want.
And that was the final straw. I turned to Bartek, grabbed his shirt, and pushed him hard against the fence, or against a fence. I had always been strong, and anger made me even stronger. His feet left contact with the ground. I scream in his face, or I came to my senses and I use a willpower.
Oh, come on.
Bud, you should have just told me. Wouldn't it have been just so much easier if you told me?
Let me in.
I traveled 300 miles in a fucking bus without fucking AC, I shouted. A few flecks of spit hitting his chin. I did it because you said you'd found something. My arms got tired and I dropped them. I politely asked again. So, would you kindly tell me what you found? I didn't realize Bioshock was also in here. Bartek scrambled to his feet, pale and terrified. Well, he brushed his forehead with the back of his hand. I did ask. I started to... With the old people here, I told them that my friend from the States was looking for her roots and wanted to know about the place her family came from. You know the drill. At first, people were very, receptive. I waited for the other shoe to drop, and then I mentioned your name. He shook his head. I urged him to continue. or I can lose a rage. I need a moment to calm down.
Things are going great. You're using your rage, and you're getting results.
I urge him to continue. Bartek, no dramatic pauses, please, I urged him. The tension is killing me. Literally. One of the old men here told me to go to hell. The other spat on the ground, and his wife crossed herself. For a moment, he looked younger and smaller. And then my own grandmother told me to stop asking. She said something else as well. I tensed up, because that's my only option. What? I asked. She told me to pray for you. Suddenly, the sweet golden afternoon wasn't so sweet and golden anymore. I was furious with my high rage. That piqued my interest, or who was I? What kind of a question is that? It's either I'm furious or it's piqued my interest.
Well, no, theoretically, who was I? Guy goes with the idea that once people started hearing your name, they started freaking out. So who were you that people started freaking out so much when they just heard your name?
Heard your family name, not you.
Yes, but still. It's still the concept, though. It is you.
What do you think? 1 or 2?
That piqued my interest. I don't know. You pick whatever. I would go. Again, keeping in mind. Oh.
Captain Hot-Blooded. I was furious. I felt anger boiling somewhere deep in my heart. How dare they? I didn't need their prayers. I walked in silence, but my mind was in overdrive. People didn't want to talk, and that could only mean one thing. I was on the right track.
You get willpower.
Plus willpower. Da-da-da-da. So, goal progress. I progressed in goal mystery. My pulse quickened and I tensed up like a hound that smelled blood. I was on the right track. Every time you learn or do something significant that brings you closer to your goal, you regain willpower. Bum-ba-da-bum. Bed and breakfast, B&B. The White Tower had a few hotels and hostels, but the preferred form of accommodation was bed and breakfasts. That's where we stayed. That was my only option. I found one that was nice, clean, and had good reviews. We had a room on the second floor with a huge window and a great view of the forest. I dropped off my stuff and freshened up a bit. Bartek said a few hasty goodbyes and disappeared, and Anya was nowhere to be seen either. The day was hot, and I was restless. I decided to head out. I wonder why you're restless. All that rage. Before you go, check out the character sheet and journal by pressing X or Y to open. You can find a load of useful information about Maya, her background, personality, goals, and so on there. You can also check who your friends and who your enemies are. The White Tower was a quaint tourist town.
So you're pretty brave. You have your inspiring and analytic.
Analytical, yeah.
You're not that spiritual or cunning. Okay,
I wonder why.
I'm
healthy. Bartek is cautious. Yay!
Everyone must be cautious.
Oh, here we go. Okay. But I had other things in mind. It's the only option. Let's go. Lay the land. I had a clear goal in mind. My family was entangled with this town and the forest. I had to uncover my roots. Literally, metaphorically.
So where do you go? Do you go to the town my ancestors lived in, or the forest I dreamed about?
I have a feeling I'm not getting anywhere with the town, since that's what Bartek's job was. And I highly doubt they're going to talk to me. So, to the forest we go! Into the wilds. Achievement! Hiker. Into the woods. It was dark in the woods, dark, humid, and chilly. The leaves didn't let through a lot of sunlight. Daniel looked at me over his shoulder. Who the hell is Daniel?
Daniel? Who the fuck is Daniel?
How did you like her? We met maybe 20 minutes earlier. Bartek had told me Daniel was the best person to go to if I wanted to see the forest, so I found him, and now here we were.
So literally, if we had just waited about 10 seconds later, we would have figured out who Daniel was.
I wasn't sure whom he meant, or he was the strange one. What kind of a... How do you like her? How do you like...
Yeah, how do you like her? Do you not get what he's talking about?
No.
Okay, cool. I guess I have one up on you.
I'm assuming Anya? I wasn't sure whom he meant.
Are you gonna pick what? The forest.
Do you mean the forest, I asked? Polish was a strange language that gave the most unexpected genders to objects and ideas. I mean, forest.
Yeah.
He gestured around us. The word sounded like the wind rustling in the leaves. Pushcha. Forest is the right word, not forest. Forests are like fields or orchards, cultivated. He spat as he said it, and forest. She is older than the concept of fields. He was using the word as though it was a name. I stood there and watched the forest. I looked at the forest again. Pushka.
Yeah, I think I just accidentally spoiled something for myself.
I know, don't spoil stuff for yourself.
I was looking at some of the achievements to see what they were.
I will look at it again as Pushka.
And it seems like the Pushka may be the name of the spirit guardian.
I looked around with fresh eyes. Brave. I felt as though I had entered an ancient battleground. Gigantic trees were locked in century-long wars for a place in the sun, and as the trunks had fallen, foes decomposed slowly at their feet. Young plants and colorful mushrooms were fighting their own battles over rotting remains. The trees that still lived stretched towards the sky like columns holding the vaulted canopy. Which blocked out all but a few rays of sunlight. Something moved within the leaves. I fought the urge to chase it. I loved what I saw. It was alien, or there was something unsettling about it all. I loved what I saw. Duh. New journal entry.
Oh, there, you just made Daniel like him.
Ah, he's sympathetic. There should be more places like this, I said earnestly. Or more of this place. Daniel lifted his head and looked at me right in the eyes. Yes, you're right. I'm not stuttering. It's too hard to deal with. He said with a serious expression. He was a strange guy, slender but muscular. Not the CrossFit type, but more of the kind of strength you get from working along all day long in the open.
Just so you understand, you, Tammy, not everyone else, but you. Slender but muscular just means that he's very toned, like how I used to be when I was younger.
Mm-hmm.
Not my fatness I am now. But theoretically, it would be the concept that, he's not bulky, or he looks like he's really strong. He's just,
he's wiry.
Yeah. Let's go with that. Yeah.
His skin was weather-beaten and bronzed by the sun, like tanned leather, and he moved in a very deliberate way. But his fingers were slim and delicate, and his eyes were the strangest shade of yellow-green. And then I remembered why I was here. Perhaps he knew my family. I was cautious when I asked my questions. Let's be fair. Don't really think, the beating around the bush is kind of her style at the moment, the way I've been playing her. So I asked about my family. You're a local. Maybe you've heard of my family, I asked. I'm not from here, but my family was, I continued. I think there's something secret that connects me to this place. Daniel stopped abruptly and turned to me, watching me for a while. His nostrils flared as though he was tasting the air. Daniel is sympathetic. Yes. His face broke into a smile. I think our families might have known each other many winters past. Pushka still remembers. Come on. He started walking. I know exactly what you need to see. That piqued my interest. Gain a willpower.
And now you're at full willpower.
Woo! I can use willpower now if I need to. I hate not having willpower. Progressed. Goal, mystery. So I was right. There was something hidden in my family's past, and it seemed to have a lot to do with the forest. With every step, I was getting closer to solving the mystery. So I followed him. Ooh. At the crossroads. We have to choose a path, he said. There's the old wolf den, or I can show you the burrows first, or the clearing that some folks call the place of power.
So the burrows is ancient groves.
Ancient graves
Is it graves?
and buried secrets, old stories, and families divided at the wolf's den, or magic tourist trap for the place of power. I'm probably gonna go with the wolf's den because it goes more towards the family. The buried secrets in the ancient graves would probably help. I don't know.
No, you want to go to the wolves den? Go ahead. As far as I'm concerned, there's no wrong.
Yeah. I just hate it when I don't know what the other things do. More so.
Yeah.
Just one small thing. He started walking, but after a few steps he stopped abruptly, like he remembered something. Then he turned to me. Could you do me a favor, please? He asked. Why should I? It depended. Or, sure. He is, my guide in Pushka.
Your choice?
So we'll go with sure. Yeah, sure. Yeah, man, sure. What do you need? I smiled. He ran his hand through the moss on the dead tree trunk. He smelled his fingers and then reached into his pocket. He took out a small stone. Too small to be a weapon? Something personal? It was just a stone. Could be something personal.
Right.
It looked like one of those stones you treasure as a child and then grow out of, but he looked at the pebble as though it were still a treasure. I would like you to take this stone. He held out his hand toward me, and throw it in the direction you think we should go. I did what he asked, or was it a good idea? He asked me to do it, and it's not like I'm, gonna die. I hope. I did what he asked.
Throws the stone, bounces off 6 trees, breaks all the trees, they all land on you at once.
Okay, I said, reaching for the stone. I took the stone, closed my eyes. I took the stone and closed my hand around it. Closed my eyes around it. It was just a stone. I was curious. It felt alive. Can't it be 2 of the 3? Because I would pick it. I felt alive and I was curious. I was curious. It felt warm. He was just holding it. Just saying. It was in his pocket, man. It was warm, and it felt grounded when I squeezed it. I closed my eyes and thought of the wolf den, trying to imagine that place that I've never been. I thought about old wolf tracks and the bones of their prey. For high rage, I threw the stone. It went flying! Just kidding. I felt my hand raise entirely on its own and then threw the stone as far as I could. It was a good throw. The stone flew in a long and arc over the bushes and disappeared without a trace into the dense undergrowth. Great, Daniel sighed. I was asking for that, wasn't I? What was the purpose of this? What happened exactly? Or, okay. What happened exactly? Sounds about right. What just happened? I was confused. You were accepted, he answered with a faint smile before he turned his head deeper into the forest. Oh, to head deeper into the forest.
Oh, that's the achievement I saw, by the way.
The old den. The first thing I noticed when we stopped was a pine tree. A pine tree I knew. High rage. I remembered it. Small, twisted, crooked, and immensely powerful. Every bend of every branch had a story to tell. It's majestic, I thought suddenly. Months before that, when I decided to come to Poland, I dreamed of that tree. I was sure of it. Just like I was sure that under the roots I would find a burrow, and a few feet away from another one, like two dark eyes gazing at me as I approached. Daniel passed me and approached the tree. He pressed his cheek to the trunk. Hello, he said quietly. I said nothing. Was there someone else there? Or hello again? I think she's getting the idea, so I said nothing. I looked around, but we were the only people there, so I remained silent. A sudden gust of wind threw a cloud of dust in my face and into my eyes. This is the den, announced Daniel. It's abandoned, of course, but still worth seeing. Why was it abandoned? It didn't look very impressive. It makes more sense if I ask, why is it abandoned? What happened, I asked. Humans happened, Daniel sighed. Humans do happen, Daniel. He sat under the tree, leaning his head back against it. It was a hot spring morning when they found this den. No one knows who the men were, even though it was only one human generation ago. There were 6 cubs here under the roots of this tree. He'd stopped stuttering and seemed to enjoy telling the story. I enjoyed listening. As I do. And I enjoyed listening to it. There was something calming in his voice and the way he talked. His slow gestures and wistful eyes made me feel as though I was with the cubs on the hot spring morning. I don't think they wanted to hurt the wolves, he continued. They probably thought they'd been abandoned. That's why they took the cubs with them. Humans have this instinct that makes you try to befriend everything, especially if it's dangerous. Not befriend, enslave. Didn't agree. Or, yeah, we were like that. Kind of want to go with that first one. But, I mean, I could just go with I didn't disagree.
Your choice.
Yeah, we'll go with the first one. Didn't befriend, enslave. You mean enslave, I answered sharply, pulling something from the world and forcing it to work for us. I hated it, but it was how it seemed to be. I'm not saying it always works out, but the intention is good, and I believe the men who kidnapped the wolves wanted to do something kind, he continued. Anyway, I took them, or they took them out of the 6. 2 lived to see the cold summer that year. The wolf mother used to come to the farm they were at, and how people went gray if they heard her. I knew that howl. Dun dun dun. And suddenly I heard that howl. I knew exactly how it sounded, and I felt despair and longing gnawing at my soul. I remembered how the cubs had reacted. They threw themselves at the door, using my high rage. They howled in response, or they snarled at people. We're going with high rage.
I'm kind of surprised only 2 lived. Like, how do you lose 4 other wolves?
They are either too aggressive or they could have gotten killed by other things. Who knows? Humans. Every time she came, we threw ourselves at the door, biting, trying to break free to escape. I realized that Daniel was silent. I met his gaze. Do you feel all right? Are you sad? Don't be. It's not all sad. It was nothing. I liked how he told the story, or I felt for the cubs. I mean, I think he's a good storyteller. I think, if I'm remembering everything correctly, I think he's a Galliard. Storytellers. You're such a good storyteller, I said, trying to brush it off. For a moment there, I felt like I was one of them. Thank you, he sighed, looking at the tree and the burrow. The cubs had survived. The cubs that survived were sold to some people in Inauka? Sure, Inauka. But after a while, both of them ended up back in White Tower with the scientists. They have a station in the national park. One of the wolves, Kazan, was a celebrity of sorts. If you saw any wolf photos from here, they were probably of Kazan. He was even on postcards. I hoped he'd eaten someone. It was a great story, or they shouldn't have moved the cubs. I want to give in to the rage, but I don't know if that's going to fuck up my relationship with Daniel. Ah! I'll go with it. It was a great story. It was such a great story. It's so complicated. I was impressed. It's because it's the truth. Are no good guys and bad guys. There was a slight gust of wind and the tree creaked. I remembered that sound from my dreams as well, the sound that made me feel safe. How often has he shared that story?
It's funny how Tammy is more concerned about making friends with Daniel than her rage, but she wants to give into her rage too. So she's in this weird part of actually trying to be nice to a random guy or give into her rage.
A random guy that's telling me things.
Continue on. Oh, I hit big boy.
How often did he share that story? I looked at the empty den. Or probably what I'm going to pick is, what happened to Kazan? Continue with the story, Wolfman.
Kazan is your fat papa.
What happened later? I felt like I knew Daniel well enough to ask that. Is Kazan still alive? He lived for 8 years in the park. Daniel looked at me with his yellow-green eyes until they let another male wolf into his pen. I held my breath. They fought over the she-wolf and Kazan lost. Daniel shrugged. He lived a long life and died fighting. It was good. We fell silent. He looked at the burrows for a long time. This place is my friend, so I try to keep it important and respected. I think it's my mission, you know? I could relate to that. Or this guy was super weird. No, I could relate to that. I seen it in my dreams. Goal, family. I think I understand. Every family had a story worth remembering. Daniel looked at the tree one last time. Goodbye, he said. Now I can just leave and be mean, or I could also say my goodbyes. I will say my goodbyes. Goodbye, I repeated. And we left. Pushka! Between the trees. The forest was alive around us, vigilant but not alarmed by our presence. I kept thinking about the stolen cubs. Well, now that the wolf den is all but done, I will go to the ancient graves and buried secrets of the Barrows. Oh. The dead hills. The trail soon disappeared. Sometimes we walked along a barely visible path made by some animals. Sometimes we followed a stream or a gully, but for the most of our trek we walked through the dense undergrowth. As I have high rage, I was getting impatient. The sun was barely noticeable through the dense canopy. I had no idea which direction we were going, and I started to doubt if Daniel did. But it was a pleasant walk. Pushka is sympathetic. It was a pleasant walk. There was always a path, though through the brambles. The ground was even, and the branches stayed out of our way. I almost felt like the forest wanted us to find the way. Dear God, I'm having issues reading now. I stubbornly pushed on, for Daniel was a mystery I decided to solve. I mean, it's awkward to walk in silence, but that rage. I feel if I push, it will be unnatural to push for questions.
Yeah.
So I will stubbornly push on. As I do. High rage choice. I settled into a steady rhythm and stubbornly pushed on. Focused on my goal. I fixed my eyes on Daniel's back and slowly zoned out. Which was not very smart. Never said I was smart. I came to my senses when I tripped and almost fell. Watch where I place my feet and follow me, advised Daniel. We continued in silence. We'd been walking for a while when I noticed that Daniel's steps had become slower. He was also looking around more often and had haunched slightly. Options. Fuck, we are lost. Or we were lost. Was it the Burrows, or I just enjoyed the moment and I lose a rage? Was this the Burrows? Are we there yet? I asked. He froze for a second as though he'd forgotten that I was there. They're tricky to find sometimes, he mumbled. Be quiet for a minute, please. That was when I felt it. Ash in my mouth, the smell of smoke and wet soil, and a pull. I hushed him. I knew where to go. Why would I hush him? I'm confused.
I don't know. Just go with the other one then.
He knew where to go. I think I know where to go, I said, surprised. He tilted his head. Okay, let's check it out. I pointed to the barely visible path to my left, under a dying tree. He followed me, and I followed my feet, knowing exactly where they should go. Under the crooked tree, past the dead tree trunk and a sponge-like mushrooms, across the patch of wet, dark green moss, all the way to the place that didn't look much different than other parts of the forest, until you noticed the mounds. There was something about the flattened hills that drew my full attention. They must have been bigger in the past, I could remember, or I felt dizzy. They'd be bigger in the past because they were probably graves. I don't know. I'll go with I could remember. A memory stirred in my mind. No, it wasn't a memory. It was a feeling anchored in my chest, akin to the taste of ash in my mouth and the smell of smoke, longing, sadness, resignation. But there was more. A sense of sacredness. It filled me with a calm excitement, and when I closed my eyes, I saw a fire burning in the darkness. Voices.
I hear voices in my head. They talk to me. They understand.
I was gonna say, cue the Randy Orton music. The village, brave. The village was burning, and dead bodies were scattered among the flaming buildings. My hands were dripping with blood. The dying crawled towards me, some in ancient Roman armor, some in rags, some in uniforms from the World Wars, some in modern camo. Why, they asked, spitting blood and broken teeth. Why do you keep killing us? That was who I was, so the forest could live. I am unsure. So the forest could live?
That's what you're gonna go with.
So the forest could live.
That's the one I would have gone with.
They died so the forest could continue living.
I was thinking towards like Gaia.
Yeah. That's kind of what I was going with too.
Yeah.
When I opened my eyes, Daniel was watching me. You were somewhere else. Yeah, you were somewhere else. He said, you said you had family here? I nodded. I dodged the question, or I lied. First off, I came here to figure that out. And this was the only weirdo that was willing to come with me into the forest. So, of course, I'm going to be like, yeah, bruh. Tell me everything you know. I heard that my father's family came from here. I nodded. I don't know much about them, though. He sighed. I don't think you should be here, he said, tersely. You're not ready. He knew something! Daniel, buddy, pal! Why would I not feel ready? It's like I grew up here. Anyway, let's go. He knew something. We're gonna find it out. Why? What do you know? I wasn't letting it go. About you? Not much, but I know the Pushka. The past is close here. His eyes were worried, and as he looked at me, and if Pushka calls to you, listen. It's wise to listen, but it's not wise to get lost in the voices. Come. On the way back, I was lost in my thoughts. The voices in the vision knew what I had to do. It's almost as though it was expected of me. What was it that my family did here? And I discarded that thought. Why would I discard the thought?
Yep.
Why had Daniel asked me about my family? Was the vision showing me what my ancestors had done here? I accepted that thought, or I was scared. Accepted the thought? Logical decision? Logical deduction, if you will. Goal progressed. Mystery. I smiled. A bigger picture was finally starting to come to light. Killing was in my blood. Why you would smile at that, as you were some, blase Americano? Who knows? The walk back was uneventful. I imagine so. 2 werewolves just walking down. My only option is the tourist trap.
Okay.
Quote unquote tourist trap. It's where I become a werewolf. Just kidding. I don't know.
Oh.
A buzzing in my ears. It started with the hair on the backs of my hands raising. It's usually on the back of the neck, it feels like. Because I have high rage. The air around me seemed brighter, lighter. The leaves in the tree trunks turned yellow and my skin started to prickle. I realized that I couldn't hear anything except for a low buzzing. that was filling my ears. I was hot. My bones were vibrating, full of energy. I couldn't contain it. I had to do something. Snap out of it. I lashed out to the nearest tree trunk. I screamed, or I willed it to stop. Do I give in to the rage? Oh, poor little Daniel. Yeah. Yeah. We're gonna flash out at some tree trunks here. Not knowing what to do with all this energy, I kicked the nearest tree trunk. No, Daniel growled. There was a cloud of dust and rot, and the buzzing grew louder. I felt a sting, and then another, and another. I kicked a hornet's nest. I started to run. Womp womp. How do you fight a hive? You don't. You just hope that you can outrun it. So I ran, and hoped. And then there was an opening, a light, real light, not yellow buzzing. And I felt everything become still. The clearing was peaceful. The clearing was a plateau between huge boulders. There were double-trunked trees between the rocks and the angular wooden construction that stuck out from the ground like a sore thumb. There was a bike leaning on it. But more importantly, there was a man, and he was moving in the most beautiful, harmonious way I had ever seen. He was hypnotizing.
I was gonna say earlier, I just kind of, didn't say it quick enough. When you kicked it and you're like getting attacked with the bees, you're like, "Not the bees! Not the bees!"
It was hypnotizing. Brave. I couldn't stop looking at the way he moved, the way his muscles danced along his tan skin. This man knew his body. He knew how to use it. It was his tool. His weapon. The wasps were flying after me, stopped in midair, forming a ball. The man slowly moved his hands forward and then gently pushed them away. The hive turned around and left the clearing. The words that came out of my mouth, seemingly without knowing. What did he do? Or what is wrong with this place? I'm gonna go with what did he do? I know there's something up with this place. I don't need to say it out loud. What? How? What did you do? He smiled. It's a little bit complicated. He stretched his hand towards me. I'm Cornell. He said in a hard German accent, which I am not doing. Shouldn't you be on the logging site? Daniel asked after I introduced myself. I needed to center myself, he answered. The others are still there, don't worry. They were cutting down trees in this forest? Center himself? Here? I think I know why he's here. As a person, not as the player. She's dumb.
It's not that she's dumb. She just, unlike you, hasn't read a bunch of werewolf stuff. Now, you can always ask that one, yeah.
They're cutting down trees in this forest. Sorry, occasionally I have to pause to drink. Wait, logging? Here? I couldn't believe my ears. He smiled bitterly. Yes, logging, here. That's why I needed to calm down. This place is special. Daniel said, some people call it a place of power, as I told you. And they have good reason to, Cornell added. Look around you. So I looked. It was a clearing filled with light. I could see Cornell's traces, a beautiful pattern on the ground. But there was one thing that caught my attention more than anything else. The tower spoiled the scenery. The serenity of the scene, the boulders around us were strange, or fruit trees. I'm gonna probably go with either the first one or the second one. Probably the first one. Because if we can see the tower from this place, then... But... yeah, I'll go with the first one.
I will go with the second, but that's me.
Why the fuck is this here? I asked, pointing at the observation tower. I thought this was supposed to be a forest untouched by humans. People believe this was a place of worship thousands of years ago, hence the fruit trees, the stone circle, and now the tower. And indeed, there's a lot of energy in this place. You felt it, didn't you? Yeah. It made me, kick a hornet's nest. Yeah, I felt it. I said without enthusiasm. Kind of like how I said it. The pushka is wounded and in pain, and it calls out in rage to anyone who can hear it. Here, this call is louder. You see the logging, his eyes darkened, is slaughter. He looked at the trees for a moment. Every priceless thing can be destroyed by greed. Logging is illegal, of course, but illegal is sometimes just a way of saying a bit more expensive, but still profitable, especially for huge corporations. The forest is hurt. The wound is getting bigger, as is its desperation.
Just for the record, just because I want to say it, sometimes logging is actually really important because of the fact that then you can actually prevent forest fires from spreading as thick and stuff like that. But yeah, which it sounds like it's mass forestation that they're talking about.
Clear cutting.
Yeah, that's fucked up.
Yeah.
Unless again, it's to make it like a fire break. Then it makes sense.
But it's not clear cutting at that point. You're not clearing a mountain of its trees because, like,
you are clearing a area though. So
it's a strip.
Yeah.
It's not the whole thing.
I'm just saying.
You're not going from bush to, Brazilian.
Yeah.
Why doesn't anyone sabotage it? Why doesn't anyone know about it, or it was wrong? Those are some lame answers. The last two, anyway. Last one.
Fight.
Sabotage! Beastie Boys.
So it almost seems like, before you start reading this, it almost seems like your ancestors have, through generations, stood in this forest protecting it.
Sounds about right, yeah.
That mound earlier was actually your generations of doing it. But that your mother either didn't understand it and left, or did understand it and left.
Yeah. Trying to break the cycle.
Yeah.
Don't break the cycle, Mom. Don't do it. I clenched my fists. Someone should sabotage the whole thing. You can't log without tools, and buying new tools will get unprofitable at some point. Cornell regarded me for a moment with a faint smile. You have a connection with this forest, don't you? You should come to the logging site and meet everyone. I became suspicious, or it sounded good. Make some new friends.
It sounds great as she's cracking her knuckles.
Let's go. It sounded good. Of course. It could be the next step. And even if it wasn't, something had to be fucking done about this logging situation. Yeah, I'll come, I smiled. Great, you will understand what you need to do. He jumped suddenly and looked at the wooden tower and the bike I didn't notice earlier. You noticed the bike earlier.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Don't start with that. Die Schwalbe? Sure.
Unless there's a secondary bike and you didn't notice the secondary bike.
Then yes. But it
continue
didn't say it that way.
No, I agree.
Die Schwalbe is getting restless, he said, and as Daniel pointed out, I should be getting on the logging site, setting up the protest. Schwalbe? What is a Schwalbe? I asked, confused. He named his bike Schwalbe. Daniel explained. He loves it very much. Cornell grinned. Oh, I do. Nice meeting you, Maya. All I wanted to do was get out of there. To the logging site, you monster. We're going.
I think she doesn't want to be in the area because it's painful as well. I think that's their Karn?
Yeah, Karen.
Karen?
I pronounce it Karen.
Yeah, but I think it's actually pronounced Karn. Is it not, or is it?
I don't know.
I can't remember what Werewolf the Apocalypse.
Yeah, I was gonna say I think they pronounced it different from how you and I pronounce it. So, the moment he disappeared, the buzzing came back. It wasn't as strong as before, but it was there. All I wanted to do was get out of there. Okay, if you want to get away from the buzzing, then yes. I see that. Through the forest. I went through the forest, or we went through the greenery. The buzzing in my ears slowly decreased. I only have the option to go back to town.
Okay.
We made our way back. I dropped in health.
Yeah, beast fucked you up.
The first evening, the Airbnb was quaint. Anya was sitting on her bed drinking tea. So, what did you see? She asked. Oh, I went to the forest, of course, I said. I mean, it's the most important thing here, isn't it? I made a quick mental inventory of everything that had happened that day. They were cutting down the forest. Place of power sure made an impression. Daniel is a strange guy, which he wasn't. I was moved by a story of the wolves. I was freaked out by the vision at the burrows.
I would go with the first one. It makes the most amount of sense.
Connect human with human problems.
Yeah.
They were cutting
the
down
other
the
ones
forest.
start getting weird.
Yeah. I can't believe they're logging here. I shook my head. Isn't the forest on a UNESCO? I'm assuming it's United Nations Environmental blah 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 list or something. Yeah, I know. There's an international protest going on, Anya said excitedly. I was there all day. You can come with me tomorrow if you want. Really? So you think I'm weird, but you want to hang out with my buddies? Just kidding.
United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization.
Yeah. So it was the first one was United Nations, yeah?
Yep.
He
is educational,
United Nations of Educational,
Scientific, and
Cultural.
Cultural Organization. Go ahead.
The place of power sure made an impression. Daniel was a strange guy. I was moved by the story of the wolves. I was freaked out by the visions of the burrows.
Well, seeing how you have to pick one. You don't think Daniel's a strange guy, so why would you pick that? You don't want to tell her about the story about the burrows. I know you, like, it's how you've been playing this character. You're keeping her from certain information already because you don't want her to think you're fucking weird. So, yeah, it's either the place of power or the story about wolves.
I'd probably go with the story of wolves.
Yeah, go ahead. That was the second most important thing to you, so yeah, it makes sense. If you have to pick all of them, it's gonna suck.
Yep. I was told about a story of wolf cubs that were kidnapped and died in captivity, I sighed. It stayed with me, you know?
Fuck's sakes. The fact that... Place of power?
It's awful what they do to animals, she nodded.
Yeah, go ahead. Place of power.
Place of power is strange. I went to this place of power and I felt a strange energy there. And there was a guy who really understood what I was going through. Oh, she looked excited. Mysterious energies in the ancient forest. So very magical, she laughed.
Okay, so there you go. Now you don't even have to say anything else. You can actually...
Fuck you, Anya!
Yeah. Because, again, I agree with you. You don't think Daniel is strange. You actually kind of... Your character / you have kind of liked him because you guys have a connection to the forest. Same with the other guy there. Or the German there?
Cornell.
Yeah. You kind of have a thing with him, too. It's like, you know, they understand you, and it's where you're wanting to get friendship from.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you don't think she'll understand the Burrows vision, so...
Yeah. No, she'll just think I'm even more fucking weird.
Yeah, I agree with you.
I don't feel like talking anymore. Go to fucking bed. Just gonna smother you with a pillow. You know what? I'm seriously tired. Let's call it a day, shall we? Soon we were both in our beds, ready to sleep. Me, with high rage. I was tired, sure, but also excited. And excitement isn't the best for sleep. I lay there for a while thinking about everything that had happened and that might happen next. The wind came from an open window, lapped over my skin as I watched the silver rectangle painted on the wall by the moonlight. When I closed my eyes, I could still see the weird vision I had had that day. My roots were here. I could feel them, almost touch them, and they were reaching to me. I felt I was closer to getting my answers is my only option. Hint, I should go and see the logging protest. Really? Progressed goal mystery.
Yeah, which is kind of interesting because you only have a 3 willpower. So, because you haven't been using any of your willpower, you're gaining willpower that's not accumulating.
Just give me back my health. Just kidding. I felt that the answers I was looking for were within my reach. I should go and see the logging protests with find Cornell and make him talk. I think if I just ask him, he'll talk. After a while, all these thoughts became blurry. They slowly started to turn into pictures, sounds, and colors.
Yeah, but to be fair, your character has this thing where basically people won't say certain things to you, and then you just go, "You will answer me." They're like, "Yeah, we'll answer you," and they tell you things.
You will answer.
Tell me what I want to know.
Pretty much. Anyway, I drifted off.
As a joke, there's a button on my thing that makes you into a monster. You can just press that and just tell me.
Maybe if I shapeshift, how about that?
Okay. Okay, if you shapeshift and talk, you have to talk with that.
Yeah.
I don't think you'll actually talk while shapeshifting. Not a lot of werewolves talk.
No, their vocal cords aren't meant for that. They can get like a couple words out. Like
run.
Or they point at someone and, die.
You're next.
Yeah.
I'm really throwing out a lot of WWE references, by the way.
It works, though. A night in the woods. I rage. In a big city, old men sit in leather chairs, lazily enjoying their ever-growing wealth. They watch the White Tower. On flickering screens, they watch me. I feel an excitement rising deep within my stomach, then throughout my whole body. I am a weapon, or I am a cub. I'm a weapon.
I was gonna say, are you seriously questioning this? Because I think somebody is the fist of frickin'. Oh my god.
I am a razor sharp knife. I am a sword. I am a gun waiting to be fired. I am asleep for now, but as soon as someone will use me, but soon somebody will use me, and I can't wait. I feel a pull.
The reason I said, "Oh my god," is because razor sharp reminded me of one of the werewolf abilities called Razor Claws. Basically, you take your a werewolf. When you're in werewolf form, you basically take out your claws and you rub it against a rock, and your claws do extra damage. I think it's an extra point.
Yep, 1 extra dice of damage.
Which is still 1 extra dice, which means that you can, just do a tiny bit of damage. But
Cornell is neutral. Ah, Daniel, you're friendly.
And the forest is sympathetic towards him.
Look at that. Look at how brave I am.
I know, you are freaking brave as balls. The rest of the stuff, not as much. Pretty sure your other stuff is actually falling. I could be wrong. I thought you had 3.
No,
cool.
it was 2.
No, just 2.
Inspiring
I know inspiring did
1.
go up. Yeah. Yeah. No, your character is definitely going to be more Arun-esque.
It's like I'm an Arun.
Yeah.
It's true. I looked it up.
Yes.
The moon was like 99 point something full the day I was born.
For those that don't quite know, in Werewolf, the Apocalypse role-playing books, which is this is what this is based off of, each moon phase, which there's 5. Tammy's pointing it out. I always think there's 4, but there's actually 5. Each one of them has a certain type of aspect. So if you're born under it, you get certain bonuses towards your, like, when you start off your character. So, like, Arun, he gets more rage. Which Aruns are born under full moons. which means that during full moons, they get more rage back. They're just more angry during full moons and more excitable.
They're the warrior cast.
So, yeah. And they're the only ones that actually get those abilities. Like, everyone gets those abilities to some degree, but they rarely get those abilities. So, yeah, because of that, they are the warrior caste. They're always rage monsters. They always get more rage, which means rage, they can use it for extra attacks or to soak. And they can actually get rage back by taking damage. So, if you hurt one, they get a rage back because now they're hurt,
which pisses them off.
well, yeah, but then
Yeah.
so they get another rage back, so they can actually attack you an extra turn, or they can do more damage or whatever. And then the other thing is, if they miss you when doing your attack, they can actually get another rage because they're pissed off that they missed, and then use the rage to do another attack to try to hit you.
They're very broken.
During a full moon, you do not want to fight in a room unless you are also broken yourself. Because if you're not, they will wreck your shit.
I know, because I'm playing one outside of this game, and he is very mean. Okay, I feel a pull.
And what Tammy was just trying to say is the fact that in real life, her birthday, when she was actually born, it was like 99%
full
moon. So if she was a werewolf, she would actually have been in a room. Which makes a lot of sense with how Tammy is in general. Which is also kind of funny because when we checked out mine, I was more of the logical type.
Yeah, the Philodox, which is a half moon, I think. Which makes sense.
Go ahead.
I feel a pull and I surrender to it. Good choice. I am pointed toward a clearing. There are piles of fresh corpses of people who died too young, skinned and mutilated. Their loved ones stand around them, grieving, unable to do anything, waiting. And suddenly, they are just trees and tree trunks. I roar, I howl, or I look around. I howl?
Okay.
Not really anything to roar at, so.
Bark at the moon.
Ooh, I got an inspiring point. I look at the moon and I howl. The trees are dead, and I'm the only one left to sing their story. There is a stench in the air like meat rotting in acid, but somehow worse. I see the monstrous army. Their mandibles are whirling chainsaws. Their long metal arms are wrapped with black pipes that look like glistening intestines. They smell vile. They wait, unmoving. I charge at them, which isn't a rune thing to do. I turn to the forest for answers, or I pay my respects to the dead and lose rage.
Well, I know which one you're going for, so I don't even know why you aren't charging right now.
Because I was actually going to turn to the forest for answers, but we'll just charge in.
How did you ask the forest?
Oh, Korax. Just kidding. It's not Korax. I try to breathe.
Korax or where? Crows.
Okay. I try to breathe through my mouth as I run towards the machines. I hit and kick them blindly, screaming at the top of my lungs, and in my own screams I hear strange whispers. They tell me to look at the sky. There, between the stars, two shapes circle each other, and an old sad wolf with gray hair and a white weasel. They keep their eyes on one another as they continue their dance, suspicious but not hostile. We need to fight the enemy, the awful rotting stench. I know that much. But how can we do that when we don't trust each other? They stop. They look at me and the clearing. I jump towards them, or I challenge them. If I challenge them, I lose a willpower.
That is something that, as you're thinking about this choice, that is something that in the campaign that me and Tammy are playing in, that we have a huge problem with. It's the fact that, the the lycanthrope community, werewolves are dicks. They have caused so many problems over the years because they think they're the superior ones that Gaia loves, and that they don't give a fuck about any of the other lycanthropes, including the fact that they went to war once and killed a bunch of the other lycanthropes off. And the only ones that now stay around are basically the hardcore predators, bears, and cats mostly.
Yeah.
And then anything that could have got away, like Coraxes, and which are crows, or were rats,
which are ratkin.
Yeah, or
the sharks.
The sharks, which were in the water, and I think the other one is something like the bison.
Yeah, they're very rare though.
Which, the bison are just hardy motherfuckers. So
yeah,
one of the abilities that Tammy really wants to get from them is a bison ability, which probably is why so many bison actually lived.
No, it's a bison spirit that teaches it.
Oh, I thought it was a bison ability too. No. But nonetheless, it's probably a bison ability, to be fair.
Yeah.
But it's a trample ability, basically. You run at something and just trample it, doing massive amounts of damage to it.
Come on, I need to do lots of damage.
But yeah, so that's why, this actually makes a lot of sense with, when they're talking about the fact that, can't we just work together? It's like, that's what me and Tammy's character have been trying to do. Like, work together as all supernatural together. Where a lot of, the other ones are like, oh, you can't be around anything that's even remotely different.
Yeah.
Anyway, continue, Tames. You're going to challenge them?
Yeah.
Okay.
Brave.
You just became friendly with
Pushka. Come here and face me. Once again, I don't recognize the words, but I understand. They come down to me, and their voice is the voice of the Pushka. Welcome back. You've been away for far too long. I wake up. I hate this waking up thing.